Hello, so I guess it's time to talk about the EA Play event and the Battlefield multiplayer demonstration. Couldn't do this earlier because there was an embargo on other people using this kind of footage. The people who were at the event got to use it all first. Now it appears that we can use it, so here we go. The event itself was a bit lackluster. The crowd in LA seemed to be made up of media types and just really wasn't that enthusiastic. The actual presentation of the event itself was pretty good, but they did make some odd decisions. Who thought that getting a bunch of celebrities there who had never played Battlefield to play the game was going to be a good idea? Especially Snoop Dogg, who was apparently completely stoned, had never seen Battlefield before and was just running backwards and forwards going 0 and 11. So on to Battlefield 1, and the first thing to note is from the presentation, spectator mode is back. And there's now a menu option to remove the UI. So rather than having to go into the console to remove UIs, you can now just do it in a menu option quick and easily. Another UI feature that's returned is the expanding minimap. So rather than having a full screen map, you can now zoom in on the minimap and make it much bigger. So now I won't have to have my minimap at 200% size. Another map that's changed is the spawn screen map, which you now get a full view of the battlefield that you then zoom into once you've selected your point. And there are new options when you spawn into a vehicle. You can select which size of tank you want to spawn into in spawn zone, so that's large, medium or small. And if you do spawn directly into a vehicle, it overrides your class and makes you the driver class. Now you can get into vehicles on the battlefield and there's now a nice animation for it, and if you get into a vehicle that way, then you keep the class that you got into the vehicle with. It's a similar story with planes. You can choose to spawn a 1-seater fighter, a 2-seater or a 3-seater bomber. And if you do spawn in as the pilot of a plane, you will be the pilot class. Now that's a very limited class. I think you've just got a machine pistol, maybe a grenade, but you're not going to be able to parachute out of planes like you used to be able to and run around with a full kit setup. Now here you're going to see somebody parachuting out with a full kit setup, but I think this is from a gondola on the airship. So you can parachute behind enemy lines with a full kit setup, but you can only do it from the airship. The airship, along with the train and the dreadnought, count as behemoths, so they spawn about halfway through the round and they spawn for the losing side, so whichever side is behind on points gets the behemoth, in this case the airship. Unlike the C-130 in Battlefield 4, the behemoths are actually pilotable, so you can move it around the battlefield. The easiest way to destroy the airship is of course with aircraft, but you can destroy it with the anti-aircraft flak guns, and you can even shoot people out of the gondolas. And the airship will crash and burn over whatever territory it was over when it was killed. So there's no pre-arranged sequence for the airship going down, it goes down wherever and whenever it was actually killed. And it does change the battlefield quite a lot when it comes down, because there's a whole load of wreckage, it crushes buildings, it kills players and vehicles underneath it, so it drastically changes the part of the map that it comes down over. And this shows a big difference between Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4 in terms of its destruction. Where in Battlefield 4 DICE went for big set pieces of destruction, in Battlefield 1 they've gone for more of a Bad Company 2 level of destruction, where you can just blow up every building, every wall. So they've modelled the destruction of each part of a building. If you fire mortars or artillery into a nice green field, then what you're going to see is a lot of craters and a lot of mud. If you take out the floor of a building, then you're going to get a big crater underneath the floor in the foundations. So as well as being able to destroy the buildings, you can now also deform the terrain, which means not only can you destroy cover, you can actually create cover in a field by producing craters. So everything so far seems to be an improvement over Battlefield 4, but I do have some concerns. And the first of those is the class system. We do seem to have an awful lot of fully automatic weapons in World War I. Bear in mind that most of the soldiers in World War I had a bolt-action rifle. Submachine guns were almost non-existent until the very end of the war. Light machine guns were pretty much stationary or were operated by a team of 3 men. Even semi-automatic rifles were a bit of a rarity for the standard soldier. So it's not really following the World War I pattern. Now I know if everybody had a bolt action rifle that would be a bit boring, but there really doesn't seem to be a plain iron sight bolt action class. Now I know when it comes to classes we've only seen the very basic loadouts, but it seems like the Assault class has all the goodies again. True, they don't have the ability to revive or medic anymore, but they're still getting a lot of toys. Now personally, when it comes to the weapons in Battlefield 1, I'm going to have some problems. As you know, in Battlefield 4 I tend to run with magnifying optics because of my eyesight, but in Battlefield 1 those are a rarity. Now I think you can put magnified optics on the semi-autos, so medics I should probably be able to play, and of course you've got the snipers. Maybe I can play Assault if I hip fire. I don't know what the hip fire is actually like in this game, but if the hip fire is any good, then I could probably hip fire the SMGs or get away with using a shotgun. I haven't seen any magnified scopes on the LMGs, so for me a big part of whether or not I can play Battlefield 1 is going to come down to the attachments you can put on the guns, because a lot of the iron sights you see are horrible. There's one rifle, in fact it's the one that's on the screen now, that seems to have the same iron sights as an RPG, so I could be in trouble. I wouldn't be able to play Battlefield 4 if all I was allowed to use was iron sights, and that could be the problem I have with Battlefield 1. We'll just have to wait and see, and of course DICE can't program an entire game because there are a few players out there that don't have very good eyesight. And so when the rest of us finally get to try out the beta, and if you haven't signed up for the Insider program, do so now because that's how you get into the beta. Well, I'm going to be looking an awful lot at the site to see if I'm actually ever going to be able to see anything. And talking of seeing anything, well, we started the maps with nice sunny daylight conditions, flying around, great fields of view. But then the maps can change. So in one round it turned into rainy, dark and muddy. The rain affects the terrain and how the vehicles react, and even down to the fact that your gun model gets wet. In another round you might get fog, in which nobody can see anything and I won't be at so much of a disadvantage. Now the fog of course is really going to affect anything that's got long range, like the snipers or the behemoths or the aircraft, even tanks. Now we saw these changing weather effects in Battlefield 4, but they were all pre-programmed and set. On the new maps it's going to be random whether or not you'll actually get any change at all, or what change you're going to get. So rain, fog, dust storms, sandstorms, all of those kind of things can roll in depending on what map you're playing. And really that's what we see from Battlefield 1. We see a progression from Battlefield 4. Things we had in Battlefield 4 have been improved. Things people didn't like Levolution, have been removed, and the old style destruction has been brought back in. So what we have is the fundamentals of a Battlefield game set in World War I. Now there is an argument to say that it's too much of a Battlefield game and not enough of World War I. But really all we have is a World War I skin over a standard Battlefield game. There are far too many automatic weapons. The SMGs and the LMGs really don't have a place in a World War I setting the way they're used in Battlefield. But then a truly historic World War I game wouldn't have the feel of a Battlefield game. So it is a balance, it is a compromise. I guess we'll see when we play it just how much it feels like World War I. But basically what we want is a Battlefield game. What we've got is a Battlefield game. So can we really complain that it's not quite as World War I as it seems? Probably not. It looks great and it sounds great. We've got the classic destruction that we wanted back, and we got a bunch of new features. So from what I've seen so far, Battlefield 1 is looking really promising. Yes, there's going to be the problems with my eyesight and the amount of iron sights in the game, but so far I like what I see. Thanks for watching.